everyone in the room for attending tonight. I again thank the Cotwires for inviting me. They will send out the apologies for that later, I'm sure. But to show the honor and respect that I give them, I want you all to know that I did manage to stay sober this long, and I'm going to stay awake for at least another hour so that we can hear from our guys running for Cotton DOT chairman. Looking forward to having a good conversation tonight. I'm not sure if we talked about format or not, but I want basically this will be as much of a free-form conversation as possible. And so other than the first question, things will be loosely timed, and I'm going to try to direct the conversation between everyone rotating around to try to make sure everyone gets ample time to talk about, realistically to talk to directly what I assume are mostly delegates to the convention in a couple of weeks. I also will be a delegate, so I'll be one of the ones that you're going to be trying to convince to vote for you. And while you're trying to convince me to vote for you, you're going to be trying not to lose their vote. So that's the fun job that you have as a potential chairman that y'all been enjoying for probably far too long. And I think I've got 2 more of these scheduled for this week, if I'm not mistaken. So good luck with that too. So with no more delay, the first question is a standard intro. We're going to let you guys introduce yourself for up to 2 minutes to the group. The only caveat I'm going to put on that is because we'll talk more about your role in the party and what that means later. I'd like you to tell us about yourself and how you're qualified for this job without talking about your past experience in the party. I'd like to know what your outside experience and who you are as a person that you bring to the table, because most of the rest of what we're going to talk about tonight is going to be partisan. So tell us who you are as a person, and we'll start with Alex and just come down the table this way to rotate the questions.
Do we agree we're all staying seated? Well, I'm Alex Johnson. I'm from Dunwoody, Georgia. I married my wife Rachel. We got married last September. I went to Oglethorpe University for undergraduate. I have a degree in politics, so I understand the philosophical basis and background of all of just politics in general, all of our principles and our philosophies. I went to law school at Georgia State University. I've been involved in the party for a while, but we'll talk about that, I guess, later tonight. I am an attorney. I'm a registered mediator. I deal with people's problems day in, day out. I have people come to me with their most critical problems, such as the custody of their children, their financial futures, everything that you think of. People are injured, people's freedoms on the line. I deal with constitutional torts, which deals with people whose constitutional rights are violated by government entities. So I understand how people are affected by an over-intrusive government and a government that's too broad, and the importance of people's constitutional rights. So those are my skills. I know how to work to bring people together. I know there are a lot of factions in the party. My mediation skills are good for that, and the fact that I'm an attorney means I can advocate on your behalf, because I don't see this position as something about me. I see it as about you. I see that I am supposed to channel your wishes and your desires with the Republican Party and its principles upward to the RNC, and to stand up for them with the politicians so that they're held accountable to our party's principles, and it maintains your good name.
My name is John Padgett, and I'm running for chairman of this party. I've been married for 32 years. I've got 3 children, 4 grandchildren. I knew a little baby girl was just born about 2 weeks ago. And, we're trying to enjoy her while we're in the rest of this campaign. I'm a businessman. I have established and had an opportunity to be involved in producing about 6,000 jobs in my life. I've had offices in 24 towns in this state. I learned a long time ago that to be a good manager, you have to be able to work with people. Sometimes it's not just trying to be a boss. You have to be a leader. If you can't lead your employees, then you're going to fail in this world. And we feel like we've done a good job over the years. We've managed to stay in business now for 40 some odd years. I've worked in my community. I've spent a lot of time in working with the community and fundraising. I raised money for the Shriners Hospital, a lot of money for the Scottish Rite Hospital. I'm a trustee on the Georgia Student Education Fund at the University of Georgia. I've raised money there. And then I raised money just in my community with the Chamber of Commerce, development authorities, retail groups. I spent a lot of time And in those fundraising endeavors, I've learned how to fundraise. And so I think I'm eminently qualified in that regard to help lead this state. And I can pretty well assure you that in the next couple of years, fundraising is going to be one of our greatest tasks that we have to accomplish. I look forward to the commencement of it. I want to welcome you now. Hope you enjoy yourselves, and I thank you for your vote and your support. Thanks.
I'm Seth Harp, and I also would want to be your county chairman of the party. I've been involved with the party for or in Republican politics all my life, but I'm going to talk about me. I have been married to the same woman, Linda, and we've been married for 43 years this July the 26th. I am a Christian. I practice my faith in the Methodist Church. I've been a leader in my church. I'm an usher. I am a trustee. And I'm involved in a number of other things with my faith. I am on the board of directors of the Georgia Conference of Higher Education, which is both the South and North Georgia Conference. I am on the board of directors of the Methodist Children's Home. I am on the board of directors of the Georgia Independent Colleges Funds, and that covers schools like Old Core and all the schools that are private schools, and they're public, but they're not supported by the Board of Regents. I've been involved. I'm a Kiwanian. I've been a Kiwanian for 37 years. I'm the very proud father of 2 beautiful daughters and the wonderful, proud grandfather of 4 wonderful children. I have a 7-year-old, 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And my children and my money went to Texas. And I laugh about that because I sure wish they would come back to Georgia. But they both made the mistake of going out there and going to school and then marrying Texas boys. I'm an attorney in private practice. I have my own law firm. It's Harp, Porter, Chef, Post, and Salvage. My law firm has I personally, for many of you not know this, lawyers are rated by their peers. I am rated in the legal profession as an AV preeminent lawyer. I am a member of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers. There are 40 of us in the state of Georgia out of 13,000 lawyers that practice matrimonial law. I have certified as a civil trial advocate for the National Board of Trial Advocacy. And I could go on for another 30 minutes if you'd like, but I don't think Steve's going to give me the time. Thank you.
My name is PJ Gundy, and I'm a candidate for state Republican Party chairman. As far as things that my family, let me say about my family. My wife's name is Christy. We will be married as of June 22nd, 22 years. I have 4 children: Whitney 17, Avery 13, Carden is 9, and I happen to have a son named Reagan who is 6. And yes, that's who he's named after. Just to share, we've got Mother's Day coming up, and my wife doesn't let me get away with this every year, but I always try to say that Mother's Day comes every year for you because I show my appreciation because your license plate says Uber Mom on it, but I'm not getting away with this. I would like to give her a gift. As far as my experience that directly relates to doing this on a business basis, back in the 90s, I was the regional vice president for Barnett Bank, that then became Nations Bank. I ran the Southeastern United States with their mortgage division. I had 6 offices across the United States that reported to me, 3 in Florida, 1 in Georgia, 1 in North Carolina, and 1 in Tennessee. And we operated 6 states out of there. I had over 100 employees, so I'm used to a large regional operation with a lot of with other branches to deal with. Additionally, most recently, I was on the board of directors for the Georgia Charter School Association, and from 2002 to 2010. From 2008 to 2010, I was the chairman of the board of the Georgia Charter School Association, and that's the time at which we got the original Charter School Commission put in and those kinds of things. So I've successfully helped with getting things like that done. And in fact, I served on the first Georgia Charter School Commission before I was found to be unconstitutional. Charity-wise, I serve on the board of directors for my fraternity down at Georgia Tech. I am an officer. I am the advocate for, they call it worthy advocate, but you never know. But I'm the advocate for the Knights of Columbus at my church. And my favorite charity is the Special Olympics, because they do some fun things like jump into Lake Lanier in February and rappel down 22-story buildings, and I've enjoyed doing those things. So thank you very much. I I look forward to discussing further things with you.
Okay, moving on from that, thank you all for those statements. Let's talk about what the job is that you're all running for, because in effect, you actually didn't define a lot of what the chairman is for the party, subject to what the rules allow. So, Mr. Padgett, what do you see as the role of the chairman of the Georgia Republican Party?
Well, first we need to be able to manage the office, and then we need to be able to raise money. We also have to be able to work and understand that this is a grassroots organization. We have to be able to work with our elected officials and understand that having problems with them is not satisfactory. We have to get on the same page and work together. And then you have to have ways to participate in this party. I think that it's important to know that I've been talking since I got into this, that grassroots is important, and I am a grassroots person, and since we're off on another subject, I've been a worker in my precinct for 30-something years. I brought still into even this year 6 new Republicans into the party this year through our precinct. I understand grassroots. I understand your frustration also, because I think there's times when you feel like that the Republican Party of the state of Georgia only wants you to put out a yard sign, write a check, and go vote. That's not what we need to do. We need to have you more heavily involved. A couple of ways that we're going to do that is that we'll have every individual in this party have an opportunity all the way down to the precinct level to participate in this party. I think that it's important that you have an opportunity to work in this party, and in the last several years, you haven't really had that opportunity. And we're going to give you that opportunity.
Harp, do you see a difference in the role?
I do, and I think the thing that the chairman of the party is, some of the things that John said, I agree with. Absolutely important to be a fundraiser government. You also have to recruit the best possible candidates. In that process, I want to vet the candidates. I want to know who the candidates are. I want to know their background so that we don't have any surprises of someone that comes up and runs for the state party office, for elected office, who has got a closet full of skeletons. My thought in terms of that is to be very careful, very positive, but have these people sit down with them and in private, very frankly, look people in the eye and say, look, you're going into a candidacy, and my role as chairman of this party is to make sure you're a qualified candidate. And just because you tell me you're qualified, I think that's wonderful, well and good. But the other side of the thing, what are the Democrats going to say about you when they do that background research? And I can assure you they will do that. Raising money, vetting the candidates. And the third thing I want to do, and this is the first thing that's going to come out of the box, is I want to be a peacemaker. Right now, the relationships between the General Assembly, the governor, the executive offices are frayed. And right now, the grassroots feel like they are frayed in the sense that they're not being fairly heard by the GOP. We've got to make peace. We've got to be that. And my goal is to be a bridge between the General Assembly, the governor, and the grassroots. And I want to make sure those things come together and make this process a process that will work together. I learned a long time ago when I was in the Marine Corps, you're defeated if you don't develop a team. We've got to have a team.
I see the primary job as twofold primarily. One is raise money so that we can do the things that need to be done in order to do the second thing, which is get Republicans elected. Those are the two jobs. Anything else is good to do, but I see us as needing to do that. How are we going to do that? Well, we've got to support our local parties. We've got to appreciate our volunteers. And to that end, what I want to do is I want to lay out really quickly right now my first 100-day plan. I intend to have a website up for all 159 counties. Right now, only about 60 counties have websites. Second, I'm going to organize all 159 counties. Right now, we have 28 counties that are not participating in next week's convention. I intend to have all of the other 28 organized immediately. I intend to, number 3, I'm going to have a field program that shows support for those county chairmen, and we're going to have field representatives that are out supporting the county chairmen. Number 4, I'm going to have a media plan and media training for all county chairmen and district chairmen so that the local party chairman is the face of the Republican Party and the local party. And 5th, I'm going to ask the state executive committee and the state committee to set aside a minimum of 20% of the state Republican Party budget to go toward infrastructure and support for our local parties. That's what I want to do. I will start that from day one, and I'm your chairman for being able to hit the ground running from day one. Thank you.
I've heard a lot about what the Republican Party in Georgia should be doing, but I think the question was what I see as the role of the chairman. Right. The role of the chairman is to provide a vision for the future of the Republican Party in the state of Georgia. I think that what will actually happen, I mean, the state Republican Party has a staff. They have money, and they have a ton of grassroots activists, meaning the people in the county parties around the state that will volunteer, put out signs, try to recruit more people in the party, and educate people and get them involved. But the question is, what do we need to do differently as chair? Like as chair, it's about providing a new direction, a new vision for the party, and that vision involves us being consistently active. And how do we get there? The way we get there is that we need to actually refocus the party on the idea of getting people educated, getting people knowing how Republican principles will help their communities, actually standing up and saying that politicians are occasionally wrong, supporting the ones that are doing things right, but occasionally they're wrong and are not standing up by our principles, and making the rest of us look bad. And the state party needs the state party chair needs to actually stand up and say something when the grassroots are angry. And the state party chair needs to be listening to all the counties throughout the state, not just the ones in Metro Atlanta, but everywhere in the state, and listening to the concerns and helping where help's needed. One thing I've been talking about from the beginning is funding county parties. The state party needs to actually help fund them, provide funding and logistical support, something that hasn't been done in the past. And the thing is, so it can't just be done with a block grant, it has to be done through a process that ensures that money is being spent for outreach, for growing the party, for increasing our ranks. And the way we do that is by getting involved in people's communities and actually showing them how our principles and our people are going to advance the party.
Okay. I'm going to deviate from the next question that ties into this one because I heard something that I'd like a little more discussion on. Senator Harp, you talked about vetting the candidates. And
Yes,
I heard you say you wanted to talk to them in private. But number one, who's going to set the standards for what is a acceptable candidate, and what do you do if, after having a private conversation with this vetted candidate, they choose to run anyway?
Well, real simple. For starters, if I find someone that in their background they had a criminal violation or an allegation of criminal violation, I want to talk to them about it. I want a very valid explanation from them of how do you explain away the fact that you may be charged as a child molester or something like that. And yes, we've had that happen. We've had people in our party. We had another gentleman that came into the party and wouldn't take the party oath. That was real simple with that. You don't take the oath of the party, you don't need to be a candidate in the party. And no sooner than that man had done it, he went over to the Democrat side and lambasted the party that was out there. We've got to vet our candidates. We've got to know what's going on with these people. People can tell you one thing and there's another. I say in private because you're more apt to get the truth out of somebody instead of embarrassing them in front of a room. But if they don't do that, then you have to be prepared, because I guarantee you the Democrats will be prepared for us. I was a part of the investigation that had to do with Casey Cagle. That was a complete trump up. That was a lie that was perpetrated by DeBose Porter and his wife and that team. And that was nothing but an absolute fabrication. I know that for one reason.
For a minute and a half, and sidebar, so I'd rather if anyone else cares to rebut or talk, or move on.
Yeah, I just think that I'm not so much for sticking our nose into the primaries as the chairman of this party at all. I am not interested in sticking my nose in the primaries. Regarding candidates, you may have some conversations on the side, but any side conversations, I believe, are going to be considered to be meddling in the primary and could cause divisiveness or division within the party and cause people to be suspicious of the state party chairman. So I would say I'd rather just stay completely away from the primaries.
I'd like to know from every candidate, does it believe in the Constitution? Does it believe in the Bill of Rights? Does it believe in less government, smaller government? Does it believe in less taxes? Does it believe in less government intrusion in our private lives? And does it believe in less intrusion in our business lives? As a start. And whether those answers, if they are negative, would disqualify somebody, I think they would have to have a real good answer to me why they think they can satisfy the grassroots by being negative on any of those conservative agenda points.
But hypothetically, if they don't satisfy you, what is the action and role of the chairman in that case?
Actually, the chairman can report back to his grassroots.
Alex?
One thing that could be done, and it probably should start being done, is that if the state committee, which is made up of all the people elected in each of the districts and the elected officers that you've been electing in Athens, if all those people turn around and realize that a candidate, it would have to be by a super majority, it actually require party rules change. But if you find out by a super majority that someone is really not standing up for Republican principles, you can pass a resolution going up against them and saying that that person is stepping outside the bounds. So to actually, I don't think the party chair independently should be stepping into the primary or biasing anything or have any sort of conflicts of interest within the party. But I think that the state party chair's job is to mimic the will of the grassroots, and the way you find out the will of the grassroots is through who you've all elected, who we've all elected to represent our various areas of the state.
Okay. Moving on to, again, we talked about the role of the chairman, but traditionally the chairman's also had an executive director. So do you, each of you anticipate keeping the current structure where you have an executive director that is essentially the chief of staff of the party, and if so, what do you see as the role for that executive director? This is Senator Harp's breakdown person. I gave him okay, we'll go. That was really more.
I'll be happy.
Go ahead. We'll count that as the next question.
Okay. I intend to keep a similar structure, but I intend to have more structure, if you will. I intend to go back to a time when we had an executive director, a political director, a director of communications. I subscribe to a policy of, and I'm a management consultant, and I try and convince my clients that they need to do this, which is to have a policy of RAC. Responsibility, accountability, and traceability. You don't do those out of order. You give people responsibility. They now know that they're accountable for results. And then you give them results that are measurable and traceable. And if you do RAC, you don't have to tar them, and it becomes an art. So I would tell you that as long as we have that. Now, if we have people that don't have specific duties or don't have specific jobs, it's very hard to run an operation on the responsibility, accountability, and traceability principles. So I do intend to have much better defined positions at the party.
I'm trying to keep this within 1 minute. Alex?
Yes, I plan to be an executive director. I also think that what's important is that we actually have people on the ground who are being paid to actually help grow some of those unorganized counties that exist and create party structure there and to recruit more people in the party. Just so all of you know, Obama has recently gone and Organizing for America to start recruiting people from colleges in other states, specifically Georgia State, and paying them and getting them organized in parts of Georgia. I think that the Republican Party has an obligation to be in the field, educating people, growing the party, getting more people involved, and actually showing that we're here and telling people why our principles are the solution for the country. And I think that can't be done in sound bites. It has to be done every day between now and the next election. And the only way to do that and find people who have that much time on their hands to be able to do it is to pay people. So on some level, we're going to have to do that, and that's one major change I think will need to be done in the organization of the state party.
We need to analyze the job positions that are there now, whether they're legitimate or whether we need to change them. We also need to analyze the people that are in those positions that are there now. My idea is to keep everybody that's there right now because they have a wealth of information and background, but we don't want to throw it away. But my guess would be that most of them will not be in the same positions that they were in when we get through with our analysis. We'll have a political director, somebody to work specifically with the executive director that we will have, and the chairman, in planning our agenda and work that we're going to do with our elected officials, the governor, members under the gold dome. And we have someone in the office that's appointed to be a communications and messenger specialist. We'll also, and that person will have some responsibility to be sure that we get our messaging out, communication is done properly, and our technology is where it needs to be, which is the best
thought on this is that I absolutely did not have someone in mind for the position of executive director. And the young man that is there now has the absolute opportunity to have that position and have that job. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask critical leaders in our party, probably one of our congressmen, probably certainly out of the executive branch, people out of the grassroots. And I'm going to put together this committee, and I want them to screen everybody that wants to be employed as executive director and the other positions of leadership in the party. They will make a recommendation to me, and from their recommendation, and I'd go in there with no one in mind in terms of the executive director. I want them to help me select the best possible person for that job. They'll make a recommendation to me, 1, 2, and 3. I will consider that, and I will choose out of one of those 3 people whose names that are put there. But as far Mr. Richardson, our gentleman there as our executive director, he absolutely will be considered in that process. I want him to be considered as everybody else down there at the party. There is tremendous institutional knowledge, and I don't mean to throw it away.
All right. Let's go with a question that seems to be coming up, because right now we're choosing the leader of the family, if you will. But the family has a lot of disparate factions, and in some ways there are a lot of folks, I think, that are trying to determine who gets to stay a member of the family, who we want to invite into the family, who really should be here. And at the heart of it is, what is the definition of a conservative? I hear it used all the time in various kinds of groups in various different ways. I'd like to hear a definition of what is a conservative. So to each of you, very simply, define conservative. Alex, thank you.
A conservative is someone who believes in the, I guess, in my mind, it's the classical liberal, like European liberal, which means that the people who live in less government intervention, that rights come from the people, that the original place where rights come from are individuals, and that government is subservient to the people, and that the people's rights are intrinsically aren't granted by government. That's what our founders believed in, and it's the way that our entire political system started. And that eventually evolved into the modern Republican Party and its platform, which is that we want less government intervention in our lives, we want less government intervention at the state level. We believe in socially conservative values. We believe that our fellow man is the root of solutions to problems, not a government that takes care of you. We believe that we should have lower taxes, that is what leads to business growth, that when the government stays out of it, that's better for all of us. So, I mean, the definition of conservative is someone who believes in those basic principles that rights come from within, not from granted by a monarch or a king or the government or Obama or whoever else.
Obama wouldn't get this. And I said it just a moment ago. Conservative is not just a word. It's an agenda and a set of ideas and ideals. And this is what it means to me. It means that we believe in the Constitution. It is the foundation of this country. It is not to be tampered with or moved in a direction. We believe in the Bill of Rights. It gives me the right to sit here and talk to you. And whether you agree with me or not, that's part of our Bill of Rights, and it's extremely important to us. We believe in small government, smaller government. We believe in less taxes. We believe in less government intrusion in our personal lives and our business lives, which gives us the opportunity for success, an opportunity to produce jobs, an opportunity to live our lives unencumbered by government as best we can. And those are what I consider to be the things that make a conservative.
Senator Harp.
I think what makes a person a conservative is what they have done in their lives and who they have been before and supported. Seth Harp started out in 63 and 64 supporting Barry Goldwater for president when I was a junior in college. Barry Goldwater was the man that took Ronald Reagan from the Democratic Party and helped Ronald Reagan become the man he was, who is absolutely a conservative by everybody's standard. I will apply the same type of work that Ronald Reagan did. That's how I define people as a conservative. We've got to bring people together, and that means inclusive. That means including all of the various groups. But I fundamentally go back to Ronald Reagan and say Ronald Reagan It was my mentor. Barry Goldwater was my mentor, and I believe in the conscience of a conservative, and I have practiced that all my life. Thank you.
I can go to a much shorter answer, and I agree with some of my fellow candidates have been saying. But I believe that a true conservative, it goes to a much simpler statement, is that our rights come from God. And the only job of government, the only function of government is to protect our rights that God already gave us. We didn't get our rights from the Bill of Rights. We didn't get our rights from any of the politicians. All that happened with the Bill of Rights is our founders were brilliantly, I believe, possibly inspired by God to go ahead and codify that God gave us these rights, and these are the rights, and let's enumerate some of them. So it's not that our rights come from anything that human beings have done, but they come from God, and the government is here to protect them, and that's all it's supposed to do.
Thank you very much. Most of your answers. So very well. Most of you mentioned elections in some form already as part of the role of the chairman, and that's really why we're all here, ultimately, as Republicans win elections. We've had a little bit of problem with that on the national level lately, and one of the national Republicans to speak on its governor, Bobby Jindal of Louisiana, his solution is that we've got to quit being the stupid party. And Louisiana, of course, is purchased from the French. The French had a great general once, Napoleon. And one of his quotes is, "In politics, stupidity is not a handicap." So, who's right? Do we need to quit being the stupid party, or do we pretend that stupidity is not a handicap? Basically, is Governor Jindal correct? And if not, what's the direction that you will see taking the party in at the state level to change the direction so we can actually be helping to win those elections as part of the national team? Be good. And I think that's, sorry, I'm not over here. Let's go with Mr. Padgett.
We've managed, at least in the last couple of national elections, to have lost our way a little bit as a Republican Party. This country is a conservative country. We have nominated, at least the last two times, gentlemen that were considered to be moderates. To be perfectly candid with you, I don't think it's played very well. We've ended up with the rock of mama twice. I think that the only way that this party is going to find its way is to get back to its conservative roots and nominate conservative candidates. And all of us go out and work to get them elected. And I think that trying to be Democrat light on a national scale is not serving our party very well.
I think as we make our decisions about who we support for the president and everything else, we've got to realize those decisions are made by primary. And when we do that, we've got to elect candidates who can win. Now, Jindal says that the party is stupid. Some of the things that came out of the mouths of some of our candidates is stupid. And we can shape our message. You know, I use the example, I'm very pro-life. I've been pro-life since as long as I have lived, and I feel strongly about it. But if we are the party of no, we don't win young voters to the party. And what I mean by that is, instead of saying, well, this is wrong, and you're wrong, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that, instead, what if we said it like this? Young woman, you're in a position right now, and I'm sorry that you are, maybe you're not sorry that you are pregnant and find yourself. But let us be the party of outreach. Let us try to direct people to agencies that will take that young person in. And the message should be this: God has given you something very precious. You have this thing growing in your body that will one day be a human being unless you destroy it. Please don't destroy it. If you want to keep the child yourself, do so. But if you also, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who would give anything to be able to adopt that child. And I can tell you, there are not many adoptions that are occurring right now because they're not babies to adopt. And they can make someone so happy. I have done adoptions in my professional life, and I can tell you that is a joyous time when a young family is given that baby and carries that thing. But it's the message. How do we message it? We've got to change our message and how we deliver it.
And other questions have been asked about how we message. I'll help you all out with that. No, we've got to stop being a stupid party. And I got scolded early on back in February by some of my people that are supporting me, saying, BJ, stop mentioning that we're supposed to stop being the stupid party. So I stopped doing it, and you go and bring it up. You're welcome. Here's the thing. In order to stop being the stupid party, what we've got to do is we've got to start talking about people and not policy. We end up so many times sitting around talking to each other and saying, you know what, the average person out there doesn't understand what the difference between the debt and the deficit is. And then we kind of smugly look at each other and go, well, we do. But you know what? We can't go out there and educate them on that. We've got to stop talking about the debt and the deficit because they don't get it and don't understand it. We can't simply talk about cutting taxes. Well, we've got to, because the Democrats say they want to cut taxes on rich people. And then we respond and say, no, we want to cut taxes on small business. And I'm going to suggest to you that that's a good direction to go, but we've got to go this much further and say, no, we want to cut taxes on employers. Because if we talk about employers, the majority of the people out there aren't going to relate to small business, but they'll understand trying to get a job because they want to be an employee. So they'll understand that if employers have more money, there's a greater chance that they get a job because the employer will be able to hire more people, give higher pay, and give more benefits. So we've got to be smarter about how we talk about it. We also talk about the Second Amendment all the time. How many of you think that if you went to the local mall right now and started just quizzing people on what the Second Amendment is, that they'll know? Less than half of them will know. 10% of them will know. So I have a Second Amendment sticker on a car, but that's not going to mean anything to about 10% of people. So we've got to start talking about security. I carry a gun, but everybody out there doesn't. But we've got to talk about security and protecting our security. We've got to talk about that we are the great opportunity party. We are the party of opportunity for security, employment, jobs, and education choices. That's what we've got to do. And we've got to learn from the experts. I'm reading David Plouffe's book right now, Obama's Campaign Manager from 1988. You know what I'm not reading? Any of the losers that lost the campaign for us in 1988 or 2012. I don't care what they have to say. It's excuses. Thank you.
I think that the issue isn't necessarily the stupid party. I think it's that we're actually the smart party. We actually understand the right solutions. We know what they are. And our problem is that we only say it to ourselves. We come to our county party meetings or district meetings or wherever else you're meeting with other Republicans, you go to dinner with your family, and it comes down to, well, we have the right answers. If only people would understand how lower taxes would help the economy. If only they would get it. And we keep saying it to ourselves. When we come to the party meetings, and the Republican Party believes in our platform and its principles, but the problem is that the politicians then go off and do things outside of our party platform, and then we all look bad, and then we try to go and explain to people, well, you should vote Republican, work for lower taxes. And then the first person you talk to says, well, why am I going to vote at all? Because so-and-so is a Republican, raise taxes. And then we lose that person. They don't want to associate with us because they don't understand. Like, they might agree with us, but they don't understand how being involved in the Republican Party actually advances those conservative principles that we talked about in the last question. And what the party needs to do is realize that with the advancing technology, the 24-hour news cycle, with all the technological changes, when our politicians do things that are stupid, it makes all of us look bad. It makes it impossible to recruit new people. It makes it impossible to fundraise. It makes it impossible to actually increase what we already have because we keep looking stupid. When the Democrats say, oh yeah, we're going to provide health care, what do? They turn around, they do it. They ignore the fact that the country's going bankrupt, but they clearly will at least appear as if they're coming from their promise. What the Republican Party needs to do is start standing up for our conservative principles, stand for the platform. When politicians step out of line, someone needs to stand up and say something that's a Republican. Because if they don't, and it doesn't get on the media, then we're just going to keep being smart internally and not push it out and educate people on how our solutions are the right ones. And that's what the state party needs to start doing. And around the country, the national RNC needs to do it as well. And I'll fight for that there.
I've heard lots of references to bringing the factions of the party together from, I think, currently is supporting you in this race, that you could identify for us, name up to 3 people that represent different factions that you brought together in your campaign. So can each of you tell me a group of different people that might come from different wings of the party, or how you would characterize people from different backgrounds and part of the outreach groups that we're not currently hitting? How does your campaign for chairman represent what you're all talking about bringing the party together? This would be Senator Harp.
Okay. I'm gonna name one person because it says it all. Josh McCoons is supporting me. He has endorsed me. He will be there making my nominating speech at the convention. And anyone in this room that doesn't know Josh McCoons, I'm sorry. You're not the better for it. Josh was recruited by me as his sophomore year in high school. I worked with him through high school. I implanted in his head how critically important it was the values of Republicans, the same conservative values that Alex is talking about. And he has gone into the Senate. He took my Senate seat, by the way, and he has put that job to there, and he has absolutely turned a lot of things upside down for the better. For the better. You know, we hear a lot of people talk about change. Change can be the change that Barack Obama gave us. I don't think anybody wants that kind of change. We want to have our values. We want to support our values. And I simply say, look at Josh, he's supporting me. I can give you other folks all across the party, but I want to spend my time just thinking about Josh.
All right. First, I'd like to mention Ken Carroll, who's the current 8th District Chairman of the Georgia Republican Party. He hails from, he goes by Ken in Eastman, because he's down south, just east of Macon. But I have a lot of support down in South Georgia, and that's important because while a lot of people in North Georgia, anywhere outside the Atlanta donut, tend to look at things and say, hey, this party is way too Atlanta-centric. I mean, some of the simplest things are, hey, don't run TV commercials that have the Gold Dome and the Western Peachtree Plaza in the commercials. How about you run some that have a video of the Houston County Courthouse in it instead? That's smart, okay? But that's coming from Ken, and Ken is a very, very, very close friend. He and I were the district chairman back in 1999 together, so I'm very proud of my rural support. Secondly, I have the last 6 Young Republicans of the Year, both men and women, supporting me. So when it comes to getting support from young people or attracting young people to the party, I feel very confident that with the last 6 Young Republican women and men supporting me, that I have support from young people, and that is a faction or a group of people that we have to become much more attracted to. Real quick, one of the ugliest things I heard over the last several months that'll scare you is we can't go by Winston Churchill's old maxim, which is if you're young and aren't liberal, you have no heart, and if you're old and not conservative, you have no brain. Most of us that are a little older like to believe that all young people are going to turn into conservatives and everything will be just fine. Well, I heard this, that most people will vote the rest of their lives the way they voted for their first presidential candidate. That completely wipes out Winston Churchill's concept, y'all. We can't have people voting for Barack Obama right now thinking they're going to switch to conservative. Third, I have the past Morehouse College Republican chairman. Morehouse is a black college. So I'm proud to talk about my support from young African Americans as well. So there's your 3 different areas, and those are 3 areas we need to appeal to significantly for the Republican Party to be successful in the future.
The next party chair can't look at things as factions. They can't look at Republicans as factions, because that's how we lose. I have about 600 people on Facebook liking my campaign page, following me there, which shows the depth of my outreach, but it also shows, and that's a number more than all others put together. And that shows there are at least that many people from all different factions.
To be clear, I'm asking about different people you can show that represent different factions in the party. 600 people on Facebook don't answer that question.
Of course not. And the question is you can look through the list of people there, because I don't want to put anybody into a box. I don't want to go and say that so-and-so sitting in the back room is part of the Tea Party faction, or so-and-so's Liberty faction. I mean, if people, after this meeting, people could stand up and say that, or they could stand up now if they want, if they're supporting me. But I don't want to force anyone to do that and say that they're a member of a faction, because that isn't the way forward, because that's what's caused the problem to begin with. I mean, back with the Pat Robertson people decades ago, people felt disenfranchised and forced out of the party because they were put into a box and seen as the enemy. I think the way forward within the Republican Party is to actually look at us all as Republicans sharing the same principles and to see what we agree on, work together on that, and move forward. I mean, if you want to have a list of people, I mean, I sent an email with tons of people who are supporting my candidacy from various factions. You can look through my Facebook page and see who you know out of those people who are making comments saying that they support my candidacy. I mean, it's the information's there, but I don't want to go and say that someone is part of a faction, because I think that a lot of them probably see themselves simply as Republicans. And I don't want to go and do anything to
Okay, but
hurt
you
them.
yourself in your opening statement said you're going to break the factions. together.
Yes, I did. I did say the word.
So you're going to actively work to bring factions
Yes.
together without identifying any factions.
That's
or
because
members
everyone's
of that.
individual. That's because everyone's individual. Because I know that there are different
And
organizations.
again, this is why I want to get into a conversation format, anyone else can jump in.
Yeah.
But if you state as a goal that you're going to bring factions together, but then refuse to identify anyone as a member of the faction or want to place them in, how are you going to achieve your own goal?
Well, I can gladly list off the groups. There's a 10th Amendment Coalition. There's various Tea Party groups around the state. There's like Liberty groups.
Okay, you
There-
mentioned three now.
Yes.
Do you have supporters that you would like to name out of any of those factions you just identified?
If any of them would like to say, all right, Charles Gregory just raised his hand. Anybody else want to name? Jack Staver? Anybody else? Oleg? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I wasn't gonna put any of them into a group, because that would be, right.
I mean, they all have joined those groups and are leaders of those groups, correct? Should they all put themselves into groups?
Well, I mean, I think they'd all like to be Republicans, and I think that's what they are. And I mean, I don't think that it's right to go and say that one person, that's what defines them. I think that's the problem we have in the party, is that when we start saying that that person's that faction, these are saying, well, I don't agree with that.
Well, as we go forward then as a party, we'll, actually, Mr. Padgett had a chance to answer, so I'll say that for the next question.
Well, my three are members of a big faction. They are conservative Republicans. They're conservative Republicans.
Yeah, pull the mic towards the face.
Would you turn my mic on, please? They're conservative Republicans. Burt Guy, who's the first vice chair of this party, was a great leader in the party for years, made a lot of difference in this party. I have great respect for Burt. We've worked together since he was a college Republican at the University of Georgia, which goes back an awful long way. Rich Thompson, who is an absolutely brilliant Christian African American who has great ideas and loves this conservative party. Heather Alvarez, who I absolutely adore and love to work with because I think she is as fine a grassroots worker as we will find anywhere in the state of Georgia, and I really do admire her and her work ethic and what she does for this party. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go back to again just the concept of whether we want to call them factions, whether we call them interest groups. We have a lot of affiliate organizations as part of the Georgia Republican Party. Is that something that, as chairman, you plan to continue to develop, or are we just going to be one Republican Party? I mean, how do we identify without labeling people as factions? But again, we have a greater federation of Republican women. We have Ogden Mealing organization. Are we going to keep those groups or not under your chairmanship? And if so, what do you see the role for these organizations?
We are going to keep those groups, and I'll get into an appeal situation here shortly, but here's the thing, is under the Georgia Republican Party's rules, there is no definition for the first vice chairman or the second vice chairman except to serve at the pleasure of the chairman or to serve at the direction of the chairman. I intend to direct the second vice chairman. I have a job for the first vice chairman, which is overseeing my committee organization. But the second vice chairman's job will be to work with those, I don't want to call them factions because those that's the business sounding, but those groups. And where a lot of those titles, let's be honest, have been cocktail party titles, or what I call cocktail party titles, which is you get to stand next to the fireplace and talk to people and say, I'm the so-and-so leader of this. And that's about the only place that it has any meaning, because you haven't done a whole lot in the position. What I'm going to ask my second vice chairman to do is to work with the affiliated organizations, which is what their actual titles are, and be the chairman and oversee those affiliated organizations, put organizations together. We need to appeal to the African American community. Let's get the African American group to work with the religion group, okay, and work together toward that, if that's what's appropriate. But we've got to work with those affiliations. Now, here's the thing about what the Republican Party's got to do. The Republican Party just has to appeal to everybody. Everybody talks about, well, how are you going to attract Latinos? And then how are you going to attract African Americans? How are you going to attract women? How are you going to attract women? I'm going to attract them all the exact same way. I'm going to do things and start from day one, doing things and running this party in a way that brings us to being looked at instead of like the grand old party, which I have no idea what that means, but being looked at as the great opportunity party, and we are the party of opportunity for all Americans, regardless of whatever group they come from. So if we use that and translate that properly, we will be able to attract people from any affiliation. And I don't care what color skin they have, or what economic background, or how old or young, or what sex they have, it doesn't matter. They will all become attracted to the Republican Party. Thank you.
No. In the Republican Party, there are all these different affiliate organizations, and I think that it's important that they continue to have seats on the state committee, because that's what they currently have based on the state party rules. I think it'll be very important to look at other organizations, other groups, seeing if the rules can be changed, to add them to the committee so that they also have a voice there. But I think that what's more important about growing a party and reaching out to all these different groups and unifying the party is that we need to start looking at everybody as all being on the same team and us all working together. A lot of those affiliated groups don't have much money. They don't have much funding. Also, we don't have access to all their different lists. Some people are members of, for example, Republican women's groups without getting any notification of the state convention coming up with a process to get involved there. A lot of young Republicans aren't delegates to the state convention, not because they aren't qualified, but because a lot of them just don't even show up to the regular party meetings. And if we're going to have good leadership and work together in Georgia, actually hitting on doors, actually educating people, actually being involved in communities, we have to actually involve people in the leadership of the party. Not just if you've been involved in the party for 40 years, but if you have good ideas. It doesn't matter, or you have any skills or talent stuff for the party. I mean, everyone needs to be looked at individually and not looked at as part of monolithic groups. I mean, we need to work together. We need to form a database with all Republican information we have, all information on every individual voter in the state, seeing what groups they're a part of, whether or not they're tied in the state party, and actually use technology so that we know who our friends are, know who we can reach out to, know who has different skills. And I think that's a lot of the way forward, but I don't want to not place any time.
Our affiliate groups have a purpose and a place in this party. It's interesting to me, having served on the executive committee and the state committee for over 20 years, that as an example, our education committee and our veterans committee, I don't ever remember having a report submitted to the executive committee from those two groups, or basically any of the other groups. And I think that we need to get those groups more integrated into the state committee and the executive committee, and get a better, get more bang for our buck as far as a party is concerned. These folks are doing great work outside the party. We've got to bring them, they're on a state executive committee, we've got to bring them into the party and get more work out of them that way. We also have all over this state a whole lot of different styles of Republicans. If you go into a room full of Democrats and say, what are you? And they say, well, I'm a Democrat. If you go into a room full of Republicans, you get no telling, I'm a Tea Party, I'm a Ron Paul, I'm a Liberty, on and on and on, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. We need all the help, we need all the ideas that we can bring into this party. One of the things I would like to do is to bring all of these different groups, maybe it was 150, 175 of them around the state, into Atlanta or Macon or Savannah. We'll establish a location, have them all come to a meeting, we'll decide what the different conservative ideas that they have are that we can all agree on. And once we agree on them, If we have some we can't agree on, we'll push off to the side. But once we agree on them, we're gonna ask every group to go back to their membership and do what? Abide by our rules, understand our rules, and then go vote. We had 5 million people in this country didn't go vote in this last election. What did they get us? Got us Barack Obama again for 4 more years. We can't do that any longer. We've got to come to agreement. We've got to work together. And as chairman, that's what one of the primary things that I'm going to make every effort to bring to this party.
When I look across what is the present status of our party, all three of these folks talking about bringing in the grassroots. There's another component, and that's the legislature and the governor and the executive. So many people here are saying, well, this party stands for this, and we're not doing that. The governor's doing this wrong. He's doing that. The thing of it is, those are the people that we elect to represent us. Those are the people who craft the laws. Those are the people that put together the running and the regulations of the policy of our government. They've got to have a place at the table. They've got to be heard. And all of these folks that have these different ideas, every one of you have viable opportunity to present that to the party. That's why I took such a strong stand in the ethics bill when they were trying to exclude the various grassroots parties from being able to come to the Capitol and talk to the people. And I told the speaker just flat out, I said, this is wrong. This is a poison pill. You're going to get this whole thing thrown out on the supposed ethics bill that the governor signed, I believe, today. The point is we've got to be inclusive, but we've got to be inclusive of all groups. And we certainly don't leave out the legislature. I entered this race for one reason. I want to be a bridge between all of these parties, put them together, work together so that we absolutely translate our principles into law. And unless we can translate our principles into law, we're whistling in the wind. And the second thing is we've got to do it in a manner that is not offensive. As long as we keep being offensive, we drive people away from us, not to come to us.
Okay. Let's assume you're now elected chairman for each of you for the purpose of this question. There's a increasing, at least from my observation of several years of blogging and other, being interested in object observing and being a political operative, of Republicans running against the establishment, whether you're a Tea Partier or, again, various labels you can put on someone. Right-wing media, talk radio, the establishment is a bad thing. Yet, whichever one of you is chairman immediately is the chair of Georgia's political establishment. How do you then bring the grassroots back in to own and accept the fact that the grassroots now have control of the establishment by virtue of your election and convince them the establishment is not necessarily a bad thing because they now own a piece of the establishment? Or do they? Is that a false premise question? And Alex, it's your turn.
The reason why establishment has become a bad word is because of what I spoke about earlier, the fact that a lot of times politicians don't stand by the Republican principles. I mean, everyone works very hard to get Republicans elected to office, and then you figure that they're going to advocate lower taxes, less government intrusion in your lives, that they aren't going to do anything that hurts you and betrays the party, and then they turn around and do that, and then the party remains silent. So I would say it's a false premise. The issue is that the establishment as a term, whatever the establishment is, because I think it's very ambiguous and doesn't really exist, is that the real issue is that the system right now is allowing Republican politicians to not stand by their principles, and the party is being silent. If the leadership of the party actually has a vision to hold politicians accountable, to actually stand up, or has a process so that all of us can hold them accountable, then the establishment no longer brings a bad word. If we actually listen to people, then that solves the problem. We listen in a response to this chairman. That's what I would do. I would listen and then deal with the issues as determined.
I hope the Georgia Republican Party never gets its top down in its attitude towards its party members as RNC does. I hope that the state GOP will understand that it's a grassroots organization and always has been. We have to get you as grassroots members of this party, though, treated fairly and listen to you. That's one of the main jobs that your chairman has to provide for you. is that the chairman will listen, the party will listen. I think it's important to know that we're gonna give you every opportunity to be grassroots up. That's one of the main reasons I got into this. Sometimes, and I go around the state and I talk to you and you tell me, well, sometimes the party doesn't listen to us. We're out here, we're recruiting candidates and they run and then they don't go vote the way we want them. And then we get people that switch parties. They end up coming into this party. They weren't Republicans. There's no check on what they're doing. So we end up with a whole lot of people over in the Gold Dome that aren't voting as Republicans. And I know you're frustrated about it. And that's one of the things we're going to make every effort to fix when we get to become chairman. We've got to stop that. We've got to have an opportunity. You have to have an opportunity to speak and let them know that they're not doing the kind of job that you want them to do. It's not conservative what they're doing. And you're entitled to a voice. And you'll get it if I'm the chairman. Thank you.
I second what John just said about having a voice. But I'm going to take it a further step. I want to include those people in jobs in the party so that these people can be heard and be incorporated and their ideas incorporated. Several times ago, BJ, we were talking about it. He said, "I want to hug," but he reached over and hugged me. And I said, "I'm not a low-camp Republican." Thank you. But the bottom line is we want to be inclusive of people. We want to be part and make you feel like you're at home. When I look at what happened in the General Assembly, in 2000 I was elected to the Senate. We were the minority party. That is a terrible place to be. Everything you want gets thrown aside. If it's a good idea, some Democrat picks it up and runs with it. Now we're the opposite side. We are in control of this thing. We've got to have leaders in our party who are elected officials who judicially take and make things happen that are involving and including of the principles that we have. That is what's important.
Quite often I find myself trying to figure out how things Seth says are relevant. Let me say what we've got to do in order to better have a situation where whether or not the establishment is a good thing or a bad thing. Here's what we've got to do, is make the establishment represent the values of those that consider themselves to be Republican. And to that end, another proposal that I'm playing with, I'll talk to the executive committee and the state committee and have them decide. But there are quite a few Republican parties in the United States, state Republican parties, that have their own platform. So when we ask somebody, like the gentleman that wouldn't sign the agreement that he abides by the Republican Party principles down at the state capitol for qualifying, which I happen to be there, and I happen to be the guy that said, well, if you're not going to sign it, then you don't get to run as a Republican. I happen to have been the one that did that. But if we have a platform of the Georgia Republican Party and we ask somebody to abide by the platform in signing this document, they'll know what they're signing for. Right now, we ask them, do you agree with the platform and the policies of the Republican Party and the Georgia Republican Party? Sure. There's nothing written down. Here's the other thing. If we better define what the Republican Party stands for, better communicate that, as I mentioned, in my first 100 days, I'm going to have a media relations training and kit for all county parties across this state so that they can better communicate the Republican values through their local newspaper, through their local radio, through their local television, whatever, but so that they're in the community. If they're in the community, better defining and explaining what the Republican Party stands for, it'll be tougher for those candidates that aren't Republican enough to run under our banner because the public will better understand it. Now, I got to disagree about getting a whole bunch of people in a room and then not agree, and anything that we disagreed on, we're going to push off to the side. You know why? We don't have nothing. What we've got to do is go with what a majority of people agree to and go with that.
Okay. Let's go back to the idea of, again, well, I'll phrase it the way it was sent to me by someone who's going to be a delegate to the convention, who's in his 20s. And just to put it in layman's terms, how are we not going to be having the continued face of the party of the old white guy? How are we going to reach the younger voters? And then I realized resonate in the minority community with the equal funding of education, you got a very stony response. I mean, how we communicate our policies, do we have policies that are wrong? Is it more just working with, again, our own interest groups? What's the real plan so we can actually start to increase or at least stem the tide of groups we're not currently getting, be that young, be it a gender issue, be it racial issues? What do we do to not be the old white people? Said the old white. And that's Mr. Padgett, I guess, going at that one first.
Well, for one thing, we have to be accessible. And we have to be mobile to the extent that we need to go into the different communities in this state and work in those communities. We have a message. If we want to change the verbiage, that's fine. If we want to change it to something other than the way I outlined the conservative message earlier, that's fine. We can change the verbiage. But we have a great message. If we go into any community in the state, there's no community in the state that's not interested in more jobs. We're a party of jobs. The other crowd kills jobs. We make jobs. We're for choice in education. We're pro-life. We're pro-Second Amendment. We're a Christian, minority Christian group. There's all these different things that we can go into different communities and sell. But we have to go. You have to understand that this is not going to be $10 million thrown up against the wall and hire some people and hope in 90 days we can have a press conference and say we're successful. We've converted a whole lot of different groups of people that have never voted with us before. Folks, it's not going to happen. This is a from now on project. We've got to work in every community in the state to earn the votes of the people that are there that are not voting with us now. Young people, African Americans, Hispanics, et cetera, et cetera. But we have to go, we have to work, and we have to be there. If we go one time, and we don't show back up again, and then we have to be smart. I had a lady tell me not too long ago, she said, 3 years ago, I became a citizen of this country. It was one of the proudest days of my life, other than getting married and finding the good Lord and having a family. So I walked out, I put my hand up, swore the oath, walked out of the room, and guess what was she confronted with in the hall? A table full of Democrats signing up people to vote. Well, we got to do better than that. We got to be smart. We got to at least go work. We got to go work in communities where we have to earn those votes. Thank you.
I'll let Mr. Padgett make up some time there because it was a little short. I'm going to ask the rest of you to try to keep this one to 1 minute. And that way we can get through hopefully quick round.
My wife has a phrase she uses all day. I can't hear what you're saying. Your actions speak so loudly. We've got to be a servant leader. We have to walk the walk. We have to reach out to people. And we have to go out there to convince them that we will help you get a job so that you can raise your family in a respectful environment. We want your children to be educated and have a quality education, whether it's a charter school or a voucher or whatever it is. But we want you to have quality schools, and we've got to be able to put that message out in a manner that is acceptable to people. But we don't talk, we walk. And when we walk, we live an example. As a young lieutenant in the Marine Corps, I learned that the leadership of America, you lead by example, not by what you say. I hear a lot of people saying things, but you lead by example.
Thank you.
So I got to talk really fast. Here we go. How do we do better with policies and not only just our appeal and for our appeal? Well, here's the thing, and I'll give you an example. And something some of y'all may have heard, you might have heard it from me at something before, but here's the thing. Last year, whether you agreed with it or disagreed with it, the Georgia Charter School Amendment passed. Now, it doesn't matter whether you agreed with it or disagreed with it, it's very useful to the Republican Party. Here's what happened. In the state of Georgia, a 2/3 majority of the House of Representatives is very Republican, a 2/3 majority of the state Senate, a very, very pushy Republican governor did a great job of pushing and getting that charter school amendment passed through the legislature and signed it. Then it went out on the ballot. On the ballot, 78% of African Americans in Georgia voted yes for that. After Andy Young, Reverend Joseph Lowry, all of the black state representatives and senators except 2 representatives voted no and told their people to vote no, and that that's segregationist. We've got to have those kind of issues and rah our electeds when the electeds do great things and take credit for that kind of stuff. Giving school choice to African Americans and everybody in this state is a win for us.
Well, I might perpetuate the whole white guy stereotype by the end of my term if I'm elected. But I think that the real solution is that we need to actually have people in the field working, as the other candidates have said, working in communities, working hard to be involved. Because in the end, I mean, we also have a messaging problem where people think that we want to cut off, for example, food stamps. They'll come up before the long food stamp president. Well, that way comes across in a lot of communities that are poor is that we want them to starve. So I have a lot of Hispanic friends who actually think that for whatever reason our party is racist. Those perceptions need to change. The only way to change them is to actually educate them and be involved in communities and explain and be honest and say, look, we're actually helping. I had one person give me a great suggestion that was the idea that our parties should be out in communities doing service. And that doesn't mean that that would be a mandate or anything else, but just when people are, I know that a lot of people in this room are involved in other organizations. They're involved, for example, I'm involved in Rotary. There are people involved in other service organizations. Just make it clear you're a Republican. Make it clear that what we talked about earlier about how the rights come to us naturally and from God, and that it's a grassroots that we believe in that.
Okay. Senator Harp, and for everyone, you're actually going to get a different question for this round. I'm going to again ask you to keep it to a minute. And I'm going to ask yourself to ask your own question. What question did I not ask you tonight that you wanted to answer? So each of you gets a freebie for 1 minute to basically bring up your own issue and tell us. So ask yourself a question and tell me what I should have asked you. And
No, I think the question that I would want to ask is, what is your record in raising funds for various organizations? Because the party has got to have and raise money. I'm looking to where we are headed right now. We have 4 candidates for the United States Senate for Sacramento seat. That means we have at least 3 congressional seats, maybe 4, that are going to be open. We're going to have a primary and we're going to have a runoff, probably in every single one of those races. And when we come out of that, we are going, they, meaning the candidates, largely will be broke unless they're self-made millionaires. The party has to sit there with a war chest and be prepared to step up and buy the advertisements, buy the various parts together so that we can have a campaign that has the technology, that has the ability to make this thing happen, and we can then go to work with that group. If you don't have the money, you ain't got it.
BJ?
The question I would ask for is well, BJ, tell me more about your brilliant 100-day plan. But anyway, here's the question I think that would have been interesting is what makes you uniquely qualified to be the next chairman? And my answer is all 3 of us have agreed over and over and over the last month or so that we have some challenges. We have technology challenges, we have messaging challenges, and we have support for our grassroots challenges. We talk about this every week for weeks and weeks and weeks now. However, I'm the geek here. If we're going to talk about technology, I'm the guy you want. I'm also the messaging guy. I've done PR and had a PR firm. So if we're going to talk about needing to do those things, I'm going to hug you, Seth. Chill. So here's the thing. If you want somebody that's a geek, somebody that can do the technology from day one, somebody who can help the messaging from day one, bring me on as your state party chairman. I'm the most uniquely qualified for what challenges us at this point in time.
The question I would ask is, what is your motivation for running? Why are you running? Because in the end, the thing is, it's an unpaid position. There's no monetary value directly attached to being the party chair. There's no honor or greatness about it. It's you're doing a service for Republican principles. And the reason why I'm running is for that specific reason. I am running because I believe that our party is going the wrong direction, our country is going the wrong direction, and the only way to save our party and our country is to make sure that when we go out there and we get people elected, that they're principled people that are actually going to epitomize what our platform and our values and our Constitution demands. That we actually have people who educate the rest of society on why our solutions are the right ones and won't waver on that simply because it seems unpopular. And I just truly believe it, and that's why I'm running. And that's the only reason why. I wonder why other people have held other positions in the past.
I think my question might be, how close do you think you are to the grassroots of the state? I think it's extremely important that your chairman understands you and will commit to work with you and understand that this is a party of you. This is not a top-down, this is a bottom-up. It is disturbing greatly over the last several years to see us kind of get away a little bit from grassroots power, so to speak, in this Georgia Republican Party. I want to bring that back. We'll listen to you. My daddy told me a long time ago, he never learned anything when he was talking. He only learned someone who's listening. And I try to be a good listener. I want to hear your ideas. I want to get you involved in this party. I think it's critical for us to do that. If we don't do that, then we're not going to be able to survive. And I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you much. And so this will be our last question, which we'll also use as a close. So we'll make it 2 minutes if needed. Why should I vote for you? Why should they vote for you? But again, it's pretty much the close. So take 2 minutes and make the closing arguments for us.
All right, I think I asked myself that question just a moment ago.
You jumped the gun.
I did. I can read now, thank you. Look, this isn't only a job about bashing on our elected officials. In fact, I completely disagree. It's about rah-rahing them when they do a good job and having some quiet conversations with them back. I found that to work with my own children. If I rah-rah and praise them a lot when they do great, I barely have to give them an icky look to get them to stop doing whatever I don't want them to do. So it works quite well. Here's what the party needs to be doing. The party needs to be shaping the future for the party. And in order to do that, did I mention I have a 100-day plan that has 5 points? One is I'm going to get websites up for every single party in this, every single county in this entire state. 2, I'm going to organize all 159 counties, the 28 that are unorganized, I'm going to get those done. 3, I'm going to have a grassroots field program that goes out and helps support all the county parties across this state, not just Atlanta, across this state. 4, I'm going to do media training. Rusty Hall did a brilliant job of that when he was the state Republican Party chairman back from 1995 to 1999. He's a media guy. He's a PR guy. He was brilliant. He taught me brilliant things like never get in a fight with someone who buys their meat by the trainload. Now, I guess it's never get in a fight with someone who buys their bandwidth by the terabyte. But these are smart things that you need to learn to do and not to do. And 5, I want to show my support for the grassroots by allocating a minimum of 20% of the state Republican Party budget to go to local grassroots and district party support and making sure that we have the infrastructure that makes them successful. Please vote for me for state Republican Party chairman, and we will work to continue the sweep of statewide elected offices and increase our electeds in the House and the Senate. Thank you.
I'll give you these laws and not together. Alex's time. Go ahead.
I've held a lot of positions in the past, not necessarily all within the party, but also outside the party, other organizations where I've led them. One thing I've done consistently in all those organizations is I've kept my promises. When I've run for office and I've held leadership positions, I've done what the people who elected me to do wanted me to. And that's a big deal, because if you elect me as your state chair, you'll want someone who will actually carry through on the promises. And I promise you that I will do what I said tonight, that I will stand up for your principles on the local level and on the national level of the RNC. If I'm elected chairman, I will be the youngest chairman in the nation. Georgia will have the youngest party chair in the nation. I'm 28 years old. We will show that we have a young, revolutionary, inclusive, innovative party. But that's not why I should be elected. That's not why you should vote for me. You shouldn't vote for me for the number of titles I've held, or the amount of time I've been in the party, or for any experience I may have had. You should vote for me based on the ideas and innovation. That's what many other young people have done throughout history. Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Big Thomas Edison, they were all in their 20s doing great things. John Locke as well. All these people were young, and they had ideas and innovation. And the whole point is that that's what we need to be judging our leaders on, is what they're going to do. Or do they have the character to carry through their promises? And will they carry, and if so, do they have the ideas that represent what you want? So I ask for your vote. My website is www.advancedgop.com. My plan has been up for a long time, and you can read all about the details in it. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your vote in Athens. And if you support me, please tell everybody else. Thank you.
My website is Padgett FORGAGOP chair.com. I've had a 10-point plan on that website since February. I would appreciate you taking the time, if you would, to go to the website and scan it over and see what you think. I think the only guy that's going about this state and giving everybody a cell phone number is 706-202-4038. Be glad for you to call and talk to me about this plan or anything else you might want to talk to. Point out a couple of things to you. I've been a county chair 4 times, a district chair 3 times in 2 different districts. I've been a regional vice chair of this party, assistant secretary, and I'm currently the secretary of the party. It's been my pleasure to have served all these years in the party. I'll leave you with this. I'm pro-life, I'm pro-family, I'm a veteran, and I got a box full of guns.
John, I got a gun box full of guns too, and all over the house. With that said, though, I think I would want folks to think in terms of me in this. I have experience, and none of the people on this panel, except myself, has actually served, been in an election, gone through an election. Alex went through an election, was not successful. I went through 5 contested elections and was victorious 5 times. I know how to win. I know how to screw candidates to win. Second of all, in each of those elections, I probably raised somewhere around $250,000. These were Senate seats. I know how to raise the money. That's what it takes to do this. Thirdly, I have walked the walk through the valley of the shadow of death. I'm the only one here who has actually gone into combat and had the displeasure of killing people, because I was an officer in the Marine Corps and I was in Vietnam and I was slap dab in the middle of it. That was 1966 and 67. That changed my life. I looked at life in a different lens because I saw what the horror of war is. And I'll tell you something, when some people in this in our party want to talk about, well, we need a revolution. When you take a baby and put it down that you've killed, I'll guarantee you it will change you forever, and it will touch your heart, whether they were there and the enemy or whatever else. It's still a human being. I've walked that walk. I have that experience. And I don't ever want to see any of our folks in this country, for whatever political reasons, to think in terms of revolution, to think of that, because the horror it will be, it will take us, our country, and make us a hovel. Thank you.
Okay, if we could give everyone a round of applause for enjoying. Again, I'd like to thank everybody else for coming out.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. There's a lot of people in here that I would normally recognize, but there's too many, and I can't give everybody a chance to say something or all that kind of stuff. So, but thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you to the Cobb GOP for co-hosting this debate and just letting us use their facility tonight. And thank you, Charlie, Jessica, and all of